Hey everyone, my name is Raw Sky and welcome to the Women's Health Podcast. We have Marabella, Kiko, Dulce, Larissa, Marsha, all back. And our special guest is Layla, who found the raw foods during pregnancy and experienced this amazing birth, this pain-free birth. So welcome everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
everyone.
Hey, it's so good to see everyone. And thank you so much, Layla, for joining us today.
It's my honor. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to give you the floor right now. And if you'd share with everyone what your experience was and how you found the raw foods, and then what the experience with childbirth was like. And even if you like, after that, go into how your cycles are and hormones are with the raw foods.
Yes, please remind me after I share about going into my cycles, because I have a feeling I'll forget that piece. But there's just so much richness and depth to share with my journey through motherhood. I actually found out about raw foods when I was 21 years old. So I am 38 now, so it's been just over 15 years. I actually found out about it because I got very, very sick with Epstein-Barr virus, and essentially my body was just breaking down. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I couldn't keep up with my life. I was very weak and tired, and I essentially kind of did a self retreat where I just stayed in my apartment I was living in Florida at the time, for like a week and a half. Other than to go out for provisions or groceries, I just was on this journey and this quest to find more out about diet, because I knew that I wasn't really taking the best care of myself because I just didn't have the knowledge. I wanted to be healthy, I wanted to be well, but I knew I had a lot to learn. And I was literally just graced and blessed with some interactions. I had spent some time on the Hawaiian Islands, and I slowly started to learn about the whole raw foods movement. I actually, the first people that I found out about it from were actually David Wolf, because I met him and volunteered on his farm on Kauai, and one of his really close friends, Nick Good, who is a friend from Australia, and they both really kind of sparked my curiosity around raw foods. When I left Hawaii and went back to Florida was when I got really sick, and I realized I needed to kind of look into that more. So David was really kind of like the initial force that opened up my eyes to this whole superfood and raw foods world. And I never really got very into superfoods, but the raw food movement became very fascinating to me. And I remember really falling in love with Matt and Angela Stokes Monarch, their relationship and their podcast that they had. And I remember seeing how they interacted with each other and just feeling like, wow, they have such a special bond and such a sweet connection. And the way they would talk to each other was just so divine. And I just remember really feeling so inspired by them. And also in particular, Angela, she wrote a book called Raw Emotions, which was really supportive for me at that point in my journey. But essentially, I couldn't really eat any food without getting exhausted. I would feel so tired after I ate. I would practically fall asleep. And so once I found out about the raw foods, I was like, wow, I want to give this a try. And I found that even though I was eating like very high gourmet raw foods at that point in time, I still found that I was getting actual life and energy from the food, which was so new for me because I was used to just kind of going comatose after I would eat a meal. And so once I found out that I could actually eat in a particular way that would give me energy, I was so hooked. And I went through a huge spectrum of different varieties of the raw food lifestyle at that point in time. And I loved it. I even traveled. I spent some time in North Africa, and I was following a raw foods diet when I was there. And I brought all my dehydrated crackers and granola, and would get fresh fruits and vegetables when I was there. And it was amazing. I felt so clear when I would eat that way. And I think the biggest thing for me was that I always kind of struggled with really hateful thoughts towards myself, a lot of self-criticism, a lot of self-judgment, even self-hatred. And I mean, it's like heartbreaking to think about how hard it used to be, and also depression at times, and just really not understanding why I was here. And I felt like every time I would go for a period and be eating raw foods, I would usually aim to do like 10 days entirely raw, to really notice incredible transformation happen. And then I might have like a cooked thing and then go back to it, because I was just noticing the results were incredible. But the biggest thing was the mental health. It really feels like it would create this clarity. It would create this trust in life. It would create a sense of that I was where I belonged and where I needed to be. It made me feel like I was aligned. It made me feel like I had purpose. And I felt happier and more joyful, and my relationships were getting better. And I mean, there's so many things that I could go into around that, but overall, it was just such a positive experience for me. And I kept doing that all the way up. I finished my undergraduate studies. I went into grad school. And when I was studying for my master's, I was living in Colorado, which is very cold. And I still was adhering to the raw food lifestyle for the most part. I would definitely have my so-called cheat days where I would go get a bunch of very warming Indian food and then go back to the raw foods. But it was predominantly eating raw foods. And at a certain point, I had a very close friend who was a medical doctor who said, "You need to eat meat if you want to ever become a mother someday." And I was like, okay, well, I don't really agree with that. And at 15 years old, I actually went vegan because just for animal rights. And when he told me that, I got scared, and I really started eating meat again from a place of fear. And I had to train myself to eat it again. It was really repulsive. I did not like the taste of it. I didn't like the way it made me feel or think or anything really. And I remember having to do like hours and hours and hours of meditation and breath work and yoga and all these different things just to get myself in like a healthy mental state. And at a certain point, I really just kind of caved into like, okay, as a mother, I really need to do this. So I ended up meeting my beloved, which is like a whole nother story for another day. But we both at the time were eating animal products, and I was really interested in hunting at that point, because I said, well, if I'm going to eat meat, it's really easy to go to the store and just buy this prepackaged, thing where the deed's already been done and you have no kind of like karmic connection to it. And it's just easy, and you don't even make that association that I'm eating an animal right now. So I really wanted to do it myself. So we went through a process, my husband and I, where we did everything. We were eating animal products. He was spearfishing. I was milking goats at a certain point. We had chickens for eggs. We were just doing it all. I mean, even like if we were like the first meat that my child ever ate, which was just like a handful of times that he's had it, was from, what I killed with my own hands. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not saying that I support that right now, but for me and my journey, I needed to really be a part of the entire process to feel like it was okay to do that. And the truth is that it never felt okay for me. I know that it does for some people, but it never felt right for me. I would often, after I would, harvest an animal, how do they say it? I would actually like get sick to my, like I would feel like I needed to throw up because of how grotesque and difficult the process was for me. And so there was a feeling of like taking responsibility for it while also it just feeling totally not right. And eventually at one point, for my whole first pregnancy, I was really under the impression that I still needed to really take in animal products heavily to have a healthy child and have a healthy birth and all of this. And I had an amazing birth with him, but it was definitely not pain-free at all. But it was a free birth, which is what my beloved and I chose just because it felt safest to us, and due to our circumstances, we were just living in the middle of the jungle, and it was just what we chose to do. So after I had that birth and it was successful and it was amazing and it was ecstatic in its own ways, but not pain-free, I knew I wanted to have another one, and I remember setting this really strong intention before I even conceived, and I said, I want to call in a soul who I can have an exquisite pain-free birth with. And the way that I formulated it as months went by was I want to have my most fulfilling birth, because I knew it was more than just like wanting it to have these certain qualities. I wanted it to be just the whole package. I wanted it to help heal all the wombs of the planet. I wanted it to set a new template for what bringing children onto this earth could be. I wanted it to be so much more than just an ecstatic or exquisite or pain-free birth. I wanted it to be a blessing and to really set a new standard for what our participation in the creative process of creating and birthing children was. And so it was a big intention. And when I became pregnant, I was still eating animal products for the first few months of my pregnancy. And I remember one day going and looking in the mirror and just looking into my eyes and being like, I don't feel good. And the interesting thing is that my husband and I were so into sustainability and wanting to do everything from scratch and do everything in a way that was the best for the environment, in our opinion. And we are doing everything from scratch, everything homemade, growing all our own food, harvesting all of these other animal products. And I felt honestly just like awful. I did not feel good in my body, mind, heart, soul, anything. And I remember looking at my husband one day and just being like, sweetie, what we're doing is not working. And he looked at me and he's like, I know, and said the same exact thing. And we were both like depressed, just feeling like, and there were so many pieces of our life that were beautiful. Like we had land in Hawaii. We were great raising our family. Our life was so beautiful. We had an amazing community and support system of like soul family. But it was just this feeling of like yuckiness in our body. And I remember at that moment in time bringing up to him and saying, I know I've brought this up to you before, but I really think that we should try the raw foods lifestyle again. And my husband is like brilliant. He's like a genius. And every time I would bring up the raw foods lifestyle to him in the past, he would always throw this article from Harvard Medical School at me, or anthropological school, telling me how we've evolved to eat cooked foods and it's not natural to eat raw foods and all these things. And that was the first time that I brought it up, that he did not say that to me. And so in that moment, I was super grateful because he is like the intellect for our relationship. So I was like, I know that I felt amazing when I was eating raw foods, and I also know I wasn't doing it right. And I was like, please just do some research and try to figure out how we can do it the right way, because obviously we don't want to mess around. Like, I'm pregnant, we're raising a family, we don't want to do anything to like jeopardize our health. And make it so that we can't care for our children or have a healthy birth or whatever it may be. So he ended up doing a lot of research and came across Doug Graham, who he was a fan of because my husband used to be a professional soccer player, and Doug Graham is not only a doctor but also he coaches people in, you know, that have gone to the Olympics. He's very athletically oriented. And so we essentially started learning everything we could from him, and eventually went on to become certified raw food coaches through him. And we really just gave it a go. And we started eating. We were living in Hawaii, so we had tons of fruit. We lived in an orange orchard, and we had a lot of banana trees, a lot of coconuts, and we're growing a ton of vegetables and really unique fruits. And so we just decided that we were going to replace all of our essentially cooked grain meals. We did a lot of bread and a lot of like cornmeal and buckwheat and eggs. We just essentially decided we were going to replace all of that with fruit and vegetables and lots of avocado and durian. And we had an ackee tree at that time, and breadfruit that you could eat raw and all kinds of stuff. So we were like in a place that there was just a cornucopia of fruit and abundance, and it was the perfect setting for us to do it. So we went for it about halfway through the pregnancy, and within 3 days, I went through like a 3-day healing crisis, I would say. And it was mostly mental, like just a lot of fears and a lot of doubts and a lot of different things coming up. And after that, it was like I was cruising. I did not, even after years of eating animal products, reintegrating them after my first initial raw food period, I didn't feel like I had like a detox to go through. I just felt better and better every single day. And I felt happier every day. And I felt more at peace and more calm and more excited to welcome my baby. And I finally felt like I figured out my digestion. I honestly would have days, this might sound kind of gross, but with my first pregnancy, I was so constipated at times. I would go for like 4 days, sometimes even a little bit longer, without going to the bathroom, without passing any stool at all. And it was painful and it was uncomfortable, and it made the pregnancy more difficult. And I was like doing everything according to the books at that time, you know, really getting all of what was being recommended. And for my second pregnancy, when I switched over, it was like, and I was eating mostly fruit with plenty of, you know, like several pounds of vegetables a day as well, and healthy fats when I felt like I needed them. When I switched over, it was like, oh my God, I did not have any problem with going to the bathroom. It was like, it was better than it's ever been in my life. And being pregnant and having this expectation of like, oh, your transit time slows down when you're pregnant so that you can receive maximum absorption, or different things that people say around, you know, it's easier to get constipated when you're pregnant. I didn't have any issues with that whatsoever once I went raw. And I really kind of credit it to the hydration, obviously, and also the intact enzymes, and then also just the feeling of just eating it as nature intended it. And also feeling such alignment with what I was consuming and what I felt in my heart and what I felt ethically, and having experienced every sector of growing food, harvesting so-called food, and coming to this place of, you know, my favorite things to process and to grow are fruits and vegetables. I love watching the flowers form and the fruits form, and it's just such an enjoyable process. It's something I'm proud to show my children when I'm preparing it. It's something that I feel 100% good about. So it was just like this full alignment that happened when I did this, and I felt incredible, and I had just absolutely no complications with my pregnancy or with the birth. When the birth happened, I was so strong. I actually, so we were in the middle of this rainforest, and we didn't have access to clean water unless we used our neighbor's well. So we had this huge bathtub that my husband and I made out of bamboo. And we lined it with a liner, and then we filled it with our neighbor's well water. And we would change it out every few days to make sure it was still clean, because we didn't know when exactly I was going to go into labor. And so when I did go into labor, we had all of this wood prepared, and we made a huge fire. And we essentially took huge pots of water from the tub and walked it to another area kind of further away and put it on the fire and heated it up, and then walked it back over to the tub and dumped it in. And that was how I spent my labor. I was feeling so strong and so good during the labor that I was like being an active participant in warming the tub in this like very indigenous kind of primal way. And it was like one of my favorite labors. Like I loved having something to do and staying active and moving. And at a certain point, the tub didn't even get hot. And it was so funny because for months I was like dreaming about this hot bath that I was going to get. But it didn't even get hot enough to be a warm water for my birth. And I looked at my honey and I was like, sweetie, I'm ready. Like I need to get in the tub. And so I got in the tub, and it was still pretty cool. And he asked if I needed anything, and I just asked for some water and my John of God crystal. I have this crystal from the healer in Brazil that is really special to me. So I asked for him to bring it to me. And right when he brought it to me, I dropped it because I felt my daughter coming out, and I felt down at the entrance, and it was all squishy. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is her head squishy? And then I realized her amniotic sac was still intact because my water actually didn't break for my second and my third pregnancies and births. And they were in call births. They burst right when the girls came out. And so there was just this wow, beautiful moment where I realized that that was still intact. She was still protected and safe in her little embryonic bubble, or amniotic bubble, sorry. And then I remembered this article that I read in this moment that was so important, and I recommend it to anyone who's interested in ecstatic birth. It's by Dr. Sarah Buckley, and she's actually getting her PhD, I believe, right now in ecstatic birthing. But she wrote an article called Nature's Hormonal Blueprint for Labor, I believe is the title. And in that, she talks about how we don't need to push. And that was something I did for my first birth. I really didn't teach myself very much. I just kind of had my conditioning from the Hollywood movies and everything that I grew up with. With the second birth, I remembered that in that moment, and I said, okay, just don't push. Just do everything you can not to push. And I kept hearing this phrase over and over again in my head that was saying, let it happen, let it happen, let it happen. And I listened to it, and I just did everything I could to just be relaxed and just let my body open. And my body literally ejected the baby out on both the second and the third without pushing. Just the fetal ejection response, I think that's what it's called, or reflex, kicked in because I was in a setting where I was so relaxed. It was so ideal. I felt so safe, and my body could just work its magic. And in that moment, my life changed. I literally felt like I had never trusted so deeply as I did in that moment, not only in the female body, but in life and God and this greater magic, and aligning ourselves with strong intentions and goals and asking the right questions and allowing the answers to just be literally birthed through us. and having the ears to be able to listen, it all contributed to this feeling of like, wow, I felt like I was reborn when my second child was born. Honestly, I felt like I had an awakening experience, and I've worked with a lot of women who've had this similar experience where they really feel like they go through this enlightenment when they give birth, and especially if it's, you know, a very conscious birth. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be pain-free. But when women really take the time to fully be present with the birthing process and fully receive the darshan, the energy, the blessing of it, there is so much transformation that can happen. And then it can be really difficult because afterwards you're like a brand new baby almost, and you also have this brand new baby that you need to care for. And so there's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility. And that's why I feel so blessed and honored to be able to share this and be in this beautiful container of women, because I feel like we really need to help each other be aware of this process and support each other in knowing that this is such a sacred passage, if not the most sacred passage that we go through as a human being, is developing this being, co-creating this life, and then birthing it from invisible to visible onto this earth. And to be able to do that in a way that feels fully aligned for every single sister on this planet. And for some, it may be in a hospital. For some, it may be on their own. It doesn't matter. It's like, what my definition of a free birth is a birth where you feel like you're doing exactly what you want, whether you're in a hospital or not. And like, you're fully aligned with your deepest values around how you feel safest and where you feel like you can most open and be most trusting. Because if we can do that as women and as mothers, it's like we've allowed ourselves to develop a relationship with our children and trust them and trust God and trust ourselves before they're even out of the womb. And what greater gifts can we give to our children than like fully trust them before they're even here? I mean, it's created the most amazing relationships with my children, and very unique, empowering dynamic in our family. And so I think I'll stop. That was a lot. So thank you for the time to share that. I think I'll open it up, or however you would like to guide from here. I'm well available.
Thank you so much. That every time I hear that story, that life path, I am just mesmerized. And coming from my background, where I've had over 60 surgeries, most of those were pelvic. It just, to know that we don't have to go through what we think we go through is amazing. So I mean, I just have one other question before I open the floor, and that is, was the second, because it's your third child that you also had, and you'd been eating raw foods even longer, was that even easier, or what was that like?
So my second and third births were, I would say it's interesting because so I shared with you the intention for the second birth, which was to have my most fulfilling birth. Once I had that, I felt a new degree of power and kind of autonomy. And I thought for my third birth, I was like, I want to see how much control I have over the outcome of my birth. Because at the time when I became pregnant with my third, I was in a women's group with Emily Saldia. I don't know if you know her from the Free Birth Society. She created that organization and has done amazing. But her and I and another really close friend were in a group together where we would gather with, in Hawaii, we call it hapai women, with women that were pregnant. We would come together in circle and we would all share what our ideal birth is. And I would watch week after week, month after month, women, you know, some women sharing about their birth and it being identical to what they envisioned. And then some women sharing and it being like totally not wanted and just like really not desirable at all, not even close to what they were idealizing. And I became really interested and was like, why is it that some of these women in the circle are having their dream births and other ones aren't? And so it became like a very interesting study for me and just kind of fascination. And I would kind of see like, what is it about these? And I didn't want to like go into judgment because that's a really big thing for me. I try to be really non-judgmental, but I kind of was trying to watch certain tendencies around like, how do these women speak and how do they act? And like, what's their practice? Do they have like a spiritual practice or a relaxation practice? Like, how are they caring for themselves? To see if there were correlations between, you know, why certain women had these dream births and others didn't. And came to a lot of interesting, you know, thoughts around that. But essentially I wanted to implement it myself. So I was like, I want to see how meticulous I can be with my next birth. So for my third birth, I knew I wanted to have a fulfilling birth. It wasn't as like eye-opening as the second one because for the second one, it was like, I didn't realize I could have a pain-free birth. Like it was such a huge deal. It was such a huge deal at like the profundity of the experience. Like there were so many things that were just shattered all of my perceptions of what childbirth was, that it was like really intense and eye-opening. For my third, it was kind of like I was expecting it. So it wasn't like as much the same, but it was essentially the same. Like my water didn't break. It was the same thing if I was in my zone, in my practice, my, you know, meditation, Reiki, kind of just like healing space. I wasn't feeling pain. It was fetal ejection response, super easy placental delivery again. Same thing with like breastfeeding, no issues with mastitis unless I like went out of balance with my diet, but it was super clear what caused it. It was like almost identical. The only thing that was different was they were in different locations, and my second birth happened so fast, and I set the intention to have a slower birth with my third. I set the intention to have a really easeful, gentle birth. And I said I wanted it to be during the day. I wanted it to be sunny. I wanted it to be at this particular spot on my lawn, and just essentially like labeled the entire birth, and the exact thing happened. So it was like to a T exactly what my envisioning was. It just was longer, but that was what I was asking for. So it's kind of been this dynamic of like really tuning into how we as women are not helpless in the face of these experiences, and we really have a lot more control over, you know, tuning into where and how can my most successful birth be and look like, and listening to that guidance, even if it doesn't seem like it is normal behavior for us to go do something. But if it feels right, and if that's the vision that we're getting as the most successful and fulfilling and safe birth that we can have, then that's information that needs to be listened to. So in my listening and tuning in, it just kind of unfolded, very, very similarly to each other.
Amazing. I just wanted to also check both of those pregnancies, actually all three, you were sleeping on the earth as well?
Yes. Yeah. I love sleeping on the earth. I feel I do, you know this, Sky, but I do, my main work has been Reiki, teaching Reiki and doing energy healing for the last 20 years. And I just feel like when I sleep on the earth, that every night it's like the earth is my healer. And I just get so replenished and just refreshed and cleansed. And I'm actually in a bit of a travel mode right now, so I'm not in my normal setting, but usually I would be outside just 24 hours a day connected to the earth. And I feel like that was such an incredible gift during my pregnancy, to have the fresh air and to be on the earth and to be in a climate that allowed for that. And there were times when it was crazy. I mean, it was a rainforest. There were times when it would pour for like weeks on end, but still my bare feet were on the ground and I was sleeping on the earth. And it was just such a beautiful opportunity to really connect with that primal, maternal, feminine energy that only us women can really understand.
So beautiful. Okay, ladies, who has a question? Because I mean, I could go on and ask a million, but go for it. Who has a question they want to ask?
I don't know about the question. Hi, Layla. Thank you so much for sharing your story. That was incredible and so inspiring. When I first learned the possibility of the kind of birth that you mentioned, I think it was through, it's not even fiction, it was a novel, fictional book called Anastasia, The
Yeah.
Raining Sisters. Yeah. Have you read that?
I have, I know that you can say it, Anastasia. I call it Anastasia. That's how I was taught to pronounce it. But I read the whole series when I was in grad school. And just it definitely motivated and directed my choices in pregnancy and motherhood. It's amazing. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
I just got a chill when you mentioned that. So the seed was planted from reading that book. Is that right?
I would say so. And also, my mother is a neonatal nurse. And so I grew up hearing a lot about just horror stories of what birth is and what she's seen and all of this. And deep down, I always felt in my heart like it didn't need to be that way. And I didn't know an alternative. And I would actually honestly say that Angela and Matt, they were a big influence for me too. Even prior to the Anastasia series. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember the couple's story as well. Yeah, so that's wonderful. I think I really appreciate you sharing this. After this live, I will be putting on my YouTube, and I will put the Japanese subtitle so that it'll be inspiring story for Japanese people who doesn't understand English as well. And and I think it's so valuable what you're sharing. Only someone who has gone through that can share. So not so much of a question. I just want to thank you for coming up out of this, busy motherhood that you have. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I have a very special connection with Japan, and since Reiki's been such a big part of my life. And so please tell all of your viewers Hajime Mashite from myself. I'm so grateful to be connecting with you all.
Oh, can I ask what Anastasia is about? It's a series of books, is it?
Yeah, maybe Kiko, you want to answer?
Yeah, so it's written by a Russian guy, and it's about a story of this fairy woman living in Siberia. And in the story, she says that she doesn't wear clothes, even though it's a super cold area. And she's living in complete nature. Basically, she's like an orchestra of animals kingdom. And I do believe this is the purpose of human. And that's what Layla has mentioned is what she shares in the story. I truly believe this was the true story, but it's a fictional book. Some people do believe that it's a real story, but I don't know.
Well, it's real now, isn't it? Layla's lived it.
Sky, you would absolutely love this series, Sky. I mean, I'm surprised you have not read it. It would just speak so deeply to especially your Earth connection.
Yeah, it's translated into so many different languages, and they have translated into Japanese as well. And there's like a huge boom going on around the world. It's like everyone is so crazy about this story. It's like she doesn't have a place. She travels and she's just pick off the fruits and herbs, and animals are so happy to be close to her. And I do think humans are designed to be that way, but we are so away from that reality.
Yeah. Okay,
And
I will look into that.
one of the biggest things that in those books that I got from it that I felt so excited about and really wanted to contribute to is that Anastasia talked in the book about this space of love, and she says that every human being deserves a space of love. Every child coming onto this planet deserves to be born into a space of love, and it was divided. I think it was into maybe 3 acres. But she developed this whole plan that was like every single person in Russia would have a 3-acre plot where they can grow all their own food, and this is where they sleep, and this is the living fence that they have. They only have living fences around the plot of love, and it really goes to share about something so dear to my heart, which is our need to just have space to be, and to be as women on the earth, and to have a place to connect with the land and to birth on the land if we want to, or to at least nurture our children on the land. And just, I mean, she goes as far as to say that it's criminal to not have that. So it's a pretty powerful book. Highly recommend.
I think, yeah, Russia is somehow helping out on that. I think they're giving pretty much all the Russians would have this place called dacha, like so they have their home in the center, the city center, where it's easier to access to their work. And on the weekends they would go to their dacha, I think it's called, and they grow their vegetables, and they store their stuff, and yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing. And just before we go on, I just wanted to say as well is I know you didn't talk a lot about your husband, but his love is something that really comes off Layla. And when I've met Layla and her partner, it just emanates off them. And your children are just, I've never seen children that look like this. They're literally, their eyes glow. But they spend a lot, they eat raw foods, they spend a lot of time outside. But so there's lots of love and support. You were grounding and you found these raw foods and you've set intentions. So just wanted to clarify that there's it's a whole package, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest piece to success as a family is the connection between me and my honey. Like, it's so clear. Luckily, we've been on the same page with so many things in our journey, and so it's been really easy. I know a lot of other women have to kind of navigate some challenges when there are differences of opinion, but to at least, even if there are challenges, to maintain that kind of like sense of equanimity, and just remember that like even just one negative thought towards your beloved is like harming your child. It really is not worth it. And it's so important to learn ways to just kind of keep the field clean and keep it this loving container to nurture the children within. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just also going to say that when you have done interviews with myself or other people, is usually Layla shows up as it's like 50-50. She doesn't say, it's all me, I did this. It's you and your partner. It's the whole package. You never really separate those. And I think that's important for people to know where you're coming from as well.
Yeah, I feel like in our world, the men are, I mean, obviously we have reasons to have some discontent toward, our male side of humanity. And at the same time, there are so many brilliant, amazing men in the world that, unfortunately, I feel like are sometimes even more disempowered than women in the birthing process. And a big thing for me has been, I've felt so supported to really come fully into myself as a woman from my partner. And at the same time, I've felt like in coming into that I've wanted to raise him up too, because I've seen that, you know, the papa, the father, the husband is like, it's totally 50-50. Like even afterwards, it's like postpartum and there's so much focus on the mama. It's like, oh gosh, those papas need just as much love. Like they will not show it because they've been trained by society to be strong, and they're that caring that they won't show it.
Yes.
But the way that it impacts them is like, if not even more intense than the women, I feel like. And I've seen over and over again, you know, my beloved show up so strong, but just wanting to like continuously shower him and just like really see that it's never just me going through a hard time. It's never just me up late at night doing this. Like they're right there. They're pregnant with us. They're giving birth with us. They're going through the whole entire thing with us. And so I love being able to re-empower the masculine. That's just so important to a whole healthy family system.
Yeah. Okay. Who else wants to ask questions?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was wanted to share with you, Layla. Like, thank you for sharing part of your beautiful journey. And when I was listening to you, I was like, wow, what a man she has taking care of her and just giving you the safety, space, taking care of the land, of everything, so you can be in this beautiful journey, and making you feel totally safe to have this pain-free birth and to learn your lessons on the first one, and then get ready for the second and the third. And it's just beautiful to see how men can actually be totally present and doing what they're supposed to, right, at all times. And it's so beautiful that the wholeness that you have, and the 50-50 that you can say, and sometimes he's 20 and he's giving the 80, and sometimes vice versa. So it's just beautiful. And it's, I know it's woman's health, but it's really important to have the man with you, and just be nourished all together. So congrats.
Thank you so much.
I love that.
Yeah.
Who else? Go for it, Marabella.
I just love your beautiful story. I'm just like in love with you. Your story. Oh, just the way that you follow your intuition, and the way that you manifested in your third birth how it was going to be, and how your beautiful energy, it just carries everything from your relationship with your husband to your children, and how connected you are to Mother Earth and connected to her, and how that plays out in your life with your children, and just how connected your family must be. And yeah, I just feel like crying because I just feel so like full from just listening to you. Just so beautiful. And you're such a great example of how things can be. I always feel like the family unit is so important. And I feel like the connection of the family is so important for our well-being, and how you're just showing in many different ways, just your story of your births can be applied to other things in life as well. And then having the raw foods, like that life force, that healthy life force, and then you're connected to the earth, and then
We'll see if she comes back. I just wanted to say, I feel like just so full and overwhelmed. I feel like I want to cry. It's like the story that and I've said this to you before, the whole planet needs. Like, it's such an amazing thing because you've done both. You've slept on the earth, so it's not just the grounding. You've eaten as natural as possible, like a hunter type person, yet it was going raw halfway through. a pregnancy. And I know like all the intuition that comes with that, but a lot of the planet needs, like they like actual, like they don't always believe in that first off, right? And I just think it's such a beautiful, I love hearing it. I could listen to it once a week.
No. Well, I love sharing it, and yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think it's just about being able to trust ourselves, honestly, because I feel like we get so much information from the external world, and when it all comes down to it, it's like we are essentially being guided by this greater life force energy to be the masters or the professionals of our own life. And even if things don't go according to plan, I mean, I was fully open to going to the hospital if I needed to, if something didn't feel right. I was fully open to anything, really. But the thing that I felt like I was grateful to be guided to do was that when fears would arise in me and doubts, I would sit with them and I would really spend time getting to know if it was trustworthy or not. And usually, if I would sit with it, if I would feel this sense of like urgency, I could tell that that wasn't trustworthy. And so I would settle myself down, and it wasn't until I could really be in this super calm, relaxed state of mind where I felt like everything was okay that I could then kind of re-enter these certain topics and say, okay, am I okay? Is everything okay? Does this still feel right? And just ask those questions on a daily basis to be able to adjust. Because it's like if I had another pregnancy and I felt like I needed to eat another way and I got a really strong impulse to do that, I would probably listen to it, because it feels like it's more about honoring what the moment is asking for than like living through a belief system or a concept, which for me, the raw food lifestyle has definitely been this anecdotal experience. And at the same time, I can tell at certain periods through my journey where I was fully living through a concept because I was like, this is the right thing. And if I don't do this, it's toxic and blah, 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 blah. But I needed to kind of have that dance and that permission where I could say, okay, well, then try something different and see how your body responds, and make sure that you're really choosing this from an empowered place rather than from just this place of fear. And so I think that if we like continuously support each other as women and really honoring what our individual truths are and what our bodies are telling us and what our entire life is guiding us to and what our circumstances are allowing for, and supporting each other in that, no matter what it looks like that's really the coming together that we need right now as this like global sisterhood. You know, is like you eat what you want, you do what you want, you birth how you want, you raise your kids how you want. And like that is none of my business. But my business does feel like to encourage and support you to do what feels safest and healthiest, and to like come together and love each other no matter what our differences are, and to know that each of us are making the most empowered decisions that we can, regardless of how it appears on the outside.
Yeah. So beautifully said. You know, it's where how I healed is by stopping listening to everything out in the world and listening to myself. And it's hard, like you said, is sometimes you have to go to the dark or to do things that you feel called to, just to relearn that it's not working for you and you're not just following a concept. It's the greatest gift anyone on this planet can experience in their life, is to go with your intuition and know that your body is guiding you, your soul, and not just essentially a book or a concept, as you say.
Right.
So Marabella, you got cut off there. Did you? Welcome back.
I don't know what happened. It disappeared. So then I went to my phone and then it popped back on. I don't know what happened. I think just thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so beautiful of what can be.
It sure is. It sure is. Has anyone else got any questions? Go for it, Marsha.
Layla, hi. I just want to thank you so much for sharing this story. It is so inspiring, and I feel as you were telling this story, I've never heard of a birth like this, and I wish I could travel back in time and know these things were possible 30 years ago. And really do. Um, it's inspiring because of the intuition of listening to your body, from the diet to the birth process. I think that's most important, and bringing the power back to the family instead of giving it away to the doctors, and being open to doctors, in case of an emergency situation. But I just think that the more you share this story and other women know that this is a possibility, and it feels to me like the most natural way, to give birth. Um, and I think that it's the future of childbirth. At least it should be the most natural option. So thank you so much for sharing, and I think your story is going to make a huge difference in a lot of young women's lives.
100%. Someone actually said the other day that childbirth, and I haven't had a child, but is equivalent to being consciously present as bones break. Like it's comparable to that. So even if Layla helps one woman, let alone 10 or 20 women, to me that fills my heart with joy, because as I said, I suffered with a lot of pelvic pain. I knew what that was like. But to know women every day, to me, it's a real trauma thing. Like, I can't fall pregnant, there's IVF. And then after the IVF, all that trauma, you finally get there, you might lose a baby. Then there's a million scans. And then you need to make sure you've got enough money for all these experts. To me, it's the same as when I think of a period when I'm growing up and you've got a pack which has the birth control, a spare pair of undies, an extra thick pad, because it gets so, it's like a lot. And you've just like unraveled, to me, one of the greatest pains that could possibly be.
Both what you and Marcia said is so beautiful and just spot on, and at the same time I want to add this piece of just something that I learned from Dr. Sarah Buckley in her article that I mentioned earlier is about just how the woman's body is designed to have an ecstatic birth. It literally is kind of the blueprint. Like we're not here to suffer through childbirth, but the most important piece that she says is that we are, what is the exact word? I think it's interfere or disturbed, something along those lines. It's that we maintain a place of essentially solace inside, so that we can kind of stay in this groove during the journey. And even if you are in the middle of the jungle, like you can have a disturbing thought that can pull you out of that space. It's like the same space that you're in when you're making love. Like that's the space that you want to be in when you're giving birth. Like if you're working on having an orgasm, like you need to have certain environmental stimuli and space from certain things. And you can create that. You can stay in that space regardless of where you are. It takes extreme mind mastery, though, which is why so much of my work has been around helping women come to like understand how their minds work. Because if you can be in a hospital unit, having an ecstatic orgasmic birth, which is totally possible, and I've met people who have had that, it's really highly likely that you're going to need to have that mind mastery to be able to not be interfered with energetically or mentally, and to be able to allow your body to do what it's designed to do. And it's totally possible, and it's totally easeful. It just takes practice for sure to if you're going to be immersed in a different setting. And it's kind of like, I like to call it the new earth birth, because it's kind of this feeling of like the new earth is already here. Like we are in the new earth right now. And it's more kind of like people say Hawaii is a state of mind. I think that like the new earth is a state of mind. Like it is totally available and here for us right now. And it's just a matter of us aligning with that energetically with all of our processes and being able to really say that this mind mastery and this understanding of who we really are is what can cruise us into that and through this earth in that space. And it's just amazing what kind of magic unfolds when we choose that kind of pathway.
It sure is. It sure is. I also just wanted to check, Layla, how are you going for time?
I could probably do 10 more minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There's some questions here, but I wanted to see, Larissa, did you have anything you wanted to ask or say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks again so much, Layla, for sharing your story. It's really inspiring. I was curious, for someone who has not become a mother, what are your top resources that you would suggest in, like, I guess, preparing for a future childbirth to have this type of ecstatic experience? Do you have any offerings? Do you have any suggestions, books, your favorite podcasts, or anything like that that you would want to share?
Yes, thank you for asking. I would say firstly, the biggest three pieces of my journey have been partnership. So learning to be really present and honest with your partner and see them clearly. I think that The Power of Now is like an amazing book. I'm sure all of you have read it, but to reread when you're about to conceive, just to remember the prioritization of like a moment by moment process. And then just really, like nonviolent communication, working together, having an intention anytime there's difficulty within the relationship, even if you're preconception, to clear it right away. Like, don't let things linger. Life is way too precious to spend even a minute angry at your beloved. It's not worth it. It's not worth anything, even the littlest things. If something gets triggered, it's an opportunity for us to become a better human being, a better mother. It's like a blessing when we get activated and all angry. It's like, whoa, what is this bringing up in me? And how can I transform this so that I can better serve, my family and the greater community? And so another piece kind of in accordance with that is Reiki. I've been doing Reiki for 20 years now. I actually learned about it from a dream that I had 5 years before I met my honey. My son actually came to me in a dream and told me to learn Reiki. And I fully believe that I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Reiki. That's how much of a lifeline it's been for me. But I've used it for all of my pregnancies, all of my conceptions, all of my children as they've been growing up. Ever since I've learned, I used to take like 4 Advils a day because I had so much pain in my body. But ever since I learned Reiki, I haven't even taken 1 Advil. Like I just place my hands on my head and it makes it feel better. It's so life-giving and clearing and just amazing to learn some kind of hands-on healing, whether it be Reiki or another form of energy healing. And that allows you to clear yourself to the degree where you can actually hear your guidance. And that's the biggest thing, is like you ultimately are your own best resource. And when you can really hear yourself and listen to your guidance, whatever it's telling you, then you're going to have a successful birth, no matter where it is or what it looks like. I do have offerings for the last years. I've had a business called Exquisite Motherhood. And it's recently transformed into the New Earth Reiki Academy because I'm focusing a lot on teaching Reiki, as I see that as such a huge part of my motherhood journey. So I offer mentorships, and I have a preconception program that I do where I guide. It's a 21-day program. It's kind of like a cleanse where I guide women through 21 days of how to eat raw when you're trying to conceive, or even when you're pregnant or afterward. And so that's all on newearthreikiacademy.com. And then I have another business that we'll talk about later, another day, with one of my best friends. We're starting an exquisite Reiki sisterhood, which is just bringing together women who want to be a healing presence on the planet and come together in community and help heal up and love up the planet. So and there's so much more, and you're welcome to stay connected. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer any of them via email or anything. I still have my email address, exquisitemotherhood@gmail.com, if anyone has questions or wants to connect more.
So amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It's so amazing. I also, everyone listening, I will be interviewing Layla and her partner Stephanie, who are starting this new Reiki business in just a couple of days. So I think it's like Sunday for Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time. But just check, I will line it up on my YouTube page. You'll see it prompting when it's going to come up, so you can follow that. And I send it out to anyone following. So if you want more information on that, I was going to bring up, I've seen lots of people have said hello here. Colleen, 21st Century, Creative Heart. And they've just kind of commented, which I've left up on the screen as we've gone along. And Kilki is 21 and recently found out she was 5 months pregnant, had no idea. She's always feared giving birth. It was her number one fear. Now she has to face it. But I'll put this question up on the screen. I have no experience, and I would love to know what it's actually like and how to reduce pain and have a pleasant experience. And I know you talked on a couple of things there with Larissa, but is there anything you'd like to add to that one, Layla?
Yeah, I would say anybody who has that question, feel free to email me, and I will send you 3 things. One of them is an animal birth, which I feel like when we watch the animals give birth, we can see how easeful it can be. And so that was something that I actually really did when I was retraining myself to experience a different birth. Another is a woman from France. It's an old video, and she's giving birth in a hospital, totally like orgasmically, ecstatically, just like screaming, laughing, like so incredibly happy and joyful. One of the most blissful births I've ever seen. And then also, maybe I would say 4, Birth into Being has 2 examples. One, actually a friend from Kauai, Amber, shares about her birth. And then also there's a birth done by the midwife in the Birth into Being documentary that is just so amazing. Like her face is just, she's so present and just so unmoved and so identified as like her truest essence while she's giving birth. And it's just such a smooth, easeful birth. So I think that I would just want to say that it's totally appropriate that there would be fear, and it's, gosh, I feel you. And also at the same time, it's like in this day and age, when we get pregnant, we have to see that we have such a beautiful opportunity to recondition ourselves and create this new template together that really is like an old template, but just to rebirth this reality that there are women all around the planet that are having incredible births on a minute by minute basis. There are trillions of women, insects, and animals and creatures giving birth on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis. And we are all in this together, and we get to really make the decision and say, you know, I want to know what birth means for me, and I want to make it what I want to make it, and not just do what a lot of other people have told me or what a lot of other people are doing. And this might take like plugging your ears at times. You know, I was doing a doula training, and during my third pregnancy, I actually traded. I taught someone Reiki, and in exchange, she gave me a doula training. And I was plugging my ears for probably 75% of the training, not only because it was sharing stuff that I didn't want to hear or know about or think about, but also because it just wasn't my experience. And so it was an amazing opportunity to kind of, you know, be selective with what I wanted to let into my mental field. And for my first pregnancy too, like I had to tell my mom, you know, I know you have a lot of stories, but I don't want to talk about anything related to what I'm doing for my pregnancy or my birth, who I'm seeing, who I'm not seeing, how I'm going to give birth. I don't want to talk about any of that with anyone. I'm just going to keep that between my husband and I. And she was supportive of it. So it's like setting boundaries and doing other things like that is really supportive. And I could probably do 5 more minutes if you have a couple more questions.
So I know Creative Hearts asked, are these questions only about birth and pregnancy today? And I wasn't sure if she was wanting to ask like the group a question or you a question, but see for anyone happy it started off. So it doesn't seem to be. I'll see if Creative Heart asks a question. Any more questions? If you've got 5 more minutes, unless anybody else has a question. But does anyone else? I was wondering about and I asked you this when we met, just about your cycle, because you do sleep outside so much. Are you literally sunk with the moon? I'm like nosy there, but I think it's so fascinating.
No, it is fascinating. It's perfect. It's, you know, at times I've been fully sunk up with the moon. And at other times I've been more grounded and more connected with the earth than ever. And I haven't been sunk up with it. And the way that I look at it these days is that because my beloved and I are open to having more children, and we've opened up to that recently. And, I see it more as that my cycles are dependent on when my babies are supposed to be born than syncing.
Oh.
So that's just how it's come to me, because for so many years it's been really confusing. I'm like, why am I not like right with the full moon? Like I'm totally connected. What's wrong? You know? And then I realized, wait a sec, like this isn't about just like being sunk up with the moon. This is about like, when is my child's birthday? Like it's so much more cosmic to me now than, you know, I mean, the moon is cosmic enough as is, but that's how I've been viewing it as of late.
Wow. So literally when people are out there thinking they're doing something wrong, they're not eating right, they're not relaxed enough, we should be out there saying, you know, the universe is lining this up for this soul who knows exactly when they're coming through. I love that.
Yeah, I feel like our children, even, I mean, just take, for example, my son Isaiah, he, like, to meet him 5 years before I even conceived him, like our children, I feel like, are guiding us from just everything, like from even before we come into become a teenager, like from our first cycle, our first bleed that we ever have, like that's all, you know, has this, it's all like a circumstantial just science that's taking place that is so much beyond anything that we can imagine. And yes, like if we're guided to certain things or certain places, everything, I feel like it's all just the magic of our children calling us, preparing us, our partners being prepared at the same time, and bringing us together in the perfect timing, and letting all the magic happen.
you said science, and I was about to interject and say, I think we've jumped into magic, and you brought up magic twice after. I'm like, it's like we need to like go, science definitely has a place, especially when things get, really acute or emergency type stuff. But if it's not, there's so much magic in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it does have to get medical, I mean, like there have been times when I've been so incredibly grateful for what our medical industry provides and can give, and I have absolutely the utmost respect for it when it's needed or when it's chosen. So it's totally, yeah, there's even magic comes through that field and through the internet and through everything. So it's kind of like, where is it not?
Yeah. Oh, my heart is so full.
Oh.
You are just amazing. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much, Layla. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you, everybody who's been leaving comments and watched this. It's been amazing. So, yeah. Okay, so that's goodbye for us. And thank you. It's been an honor, Layla. Like it really has.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
feel so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be in such a beautiful container with you all. So thanks so much.
Oh,
thank you.
all right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be back next month with somebody new to join and share all their knowledge. So we hope to see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.